Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the hole which the Tories have sunk themselves into over Islamophobia as Muslim conservatives rage against the lies of their leadership, and the leadership gets trapped by backbenchers claiming that their voters are on the side of Lee Anderson. Bit of a mess. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So the news this morning was all about the pressure on Rishi Sunak to make his party's position on Islamophobia clear. I mean, they won't even mention the word. He sent out his deputy, Oliver Dowden, yesterday, who tried to take the line that Anderson wasn't Islamophobic, but that his comments might be interpreted that way, and so he should have apologised for them. The Tories were keen to emphasise that Anderson did not lose the party whip because of what he said, but because he refused to apologise for what they are claiming is an interpretation of his words. What a tangled web we weave. And now today, Sunak has said that Anderson's words were wrong, which is slightly stronger language than was being used by his deputy yesterday, but he was still denying that there were issues in his party, but the denial is ridiculous. There are glaring problems within the Conservative Party. There are problems in all political parties. Any political party that says there's no racism within it is lying. It's within all parties, it's within all sections of our society. What people want to see is not denying that these problems exist, but facing up to them. Because if you deny that they exist, what you're saying is, I'm not going to do anything about them. Because why would you do something about something that doesn't exist? I mean, even when Labour were failing to properly address the issue some years ago, the leadership never denied the problem. Some within the party did, but not the leadership. It's just getting increasingly messy as Sunak tries to appease two groups of people in his mind. He's trying to appease those who were not prepared to ignore what Anderson said, but at the same time, those who really agree with him. As I said in the recent past, the Tories are chasing after Reform UK voters as their top priority. But although they're not actively chasing voters in the centre, as they should, they recognise that they don't want to lose even more support from there to Labour or the Lib Dems, but particularly to Labour, because every time they lose a voter to Labour, that's like worth 2 votes. It closes the gap by 2 or opens it by 2 is the case at the moment. And this trying to be all things to all people is perfectly exemplified by these contortions over Islamophobia. Baroness Wolsey, a former Conservative Party chair, former member of David Cameron's cabinet, and someone who's always very outspoken on racism within her party, was tearing a strip off Kemi Badenoch this morning on Twitter. Labour's chair, Annalisa Dodds, had asked why the Conservatives were finding it hard to call out Islamophobia and wondered if it was because they still refuse to adopt the definition shared by every other major political party in Britain. Badenoch responded that they use the term anti-Muslim hatred instead, and that the definition of Islamophobia used by Labour and literally everyone else allows blasphemy laws by the back door. To which Wolsey pointed out, hang on a minute, over a year and a half ago, she's saying she explained to Kemi Badenoch in detail the definition of Islamophobia, and she asked her, can you set out any concerns or objections you have to this? And according to Wolsey, Badenoch raised 0 objections, 0 concerns. So, yeah, what's this? Badenoch has now been called out on 4 lies in the space of a week now. She was called out over her lies about the Canadian trade talks by the Canadian government, about post office compensation lies by the former chair of the post office, though she's still claiming he said, she said over that one. She lied about working with LGBT groups. She said she works very closely with them, and then it turned out she hasn't attended a single event or meeting. And now this. If she has serious ambitions of leading her party, and especially leading a government, she's either going to have to stop telling so many lies, or at least get better at making them harder to expose. But that's a little aside. It's just to point out that the position the Tory leadership has adopted is so far beyond the bounds of acceptability or even common sense, even by the standards of the Conservatives, that their own are calling it out. Like, it's not just Baroness Wolsey, it's not just Sajid Javid. Former Attorney General Robert Buckland as well, absolutely attacking the toxicity of his party's position. But attacks are coming from the other side as well. Sky News were reporting on leaked WhatsApp messages from Tory MPs claiming that party members and random constituents alike were contacting them to say that Anderson's suspension was a mistake. Now, it's possible that these MPs are inflating the issue and that they had more messages supporting the suspension than attacking it. I don't know. What we do know is that a number of Tory MPs are trying to characterise Anderson's treatment as unfair. So Sunak has a problem to deal with. He's under pressure to make his position clear and will piss off important people the second he does so. But Sunak is desperately trying to not make his position clear. He's saying that Anderson's words are wrong, but has refused to say exactly what was wrong with them, even though he was asked. He is point blank refusing to answer specific questions on this. And we know he's not up for this challenge because he ran away like a frightened poodle when the debates on the Privileges Committee inquiry into Boris Johnson were taking place. Sunak is simply incapable of dealing with this. If he has to jump a particular way, wouldn't surprise me if he jumps the way of the bigots, because he seems to have created an entire election strategy based on chasing after those very same voters. And as an aside, I must emphasise the nonsense of the position the Tories find themselves in from a strategic point of view. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Tories created the Reform UK monster. Reform UK rebranded after the 2019 general election and were getting nowhere. Nigel Farage was at the time leading it. You know, we all say if Nigel Farage comes back to formally lead the Reform UK, they'll probably do better. They absolutely will. He was leading Reform UK. He was actually leading them and he was getting nowhere. And it's because they couldn't get a handle on anything. It's effectively why he stood back and let Tice took over, I think. I don't think Farage's ego could take the continued failure to move up in the polls. They were no better than UKIP. Then the Tories started to distract voters from their appalling record and the plummeting standard of living by focusing on what they termed illegal immigration. In reality, mostly asylum seekers crossing the channel in small boats because safe routes did not exist. A problem which the Tories not only created but amplified. They chose to do this. This allowed Reform UK to finally have something to talk about. And because the Tories were talking about it, it was newsworthy, got lots of attention in the media, who then naturally would report on what Reform UK was saying. Then the Rwanda plan was announced, which allowed Reform UK to attack the problems with it and present their own. The Tories created the current success of Reform UK and have now lost a significant number of voters to them. The Conservatives should just try and cut off the oxygen of publicity of these issues, but it is probably too late. They're in a sunk cost fallacy now. Or should that be a Sunak cost fallacy? And it is a fallacy because none of this is going to affect their polling performance, positively or negatively. The vast majority of former Conservative voters who are appalled at this blatant show of the most toxic bigotry have either already decided to vote for someone else or have already decided to stick with the Tories as somehow the lesser of evils. As for the bigot vote, the Tories either already have it or they're not going to win it back because from their point of view, they're seeing the Tories approaching a half-hearted, please everyone type approach. What it might change, I suppose, is the attitudes of those crucial don't knows, because it's known that there are former Conservative voters not currently able to say how they would vote in the election. It doesn't mean to say they won't vote. They're waiting for something. For those who would use their vote on matters like this, are they waiting for the Tories to be more racist or less racist? But I have no confidence that the Tories are really applying any sensible level of electoral strategy with their reaction to the Anderson situation. I think the focus is more on internal party issues. So where does it leave them? Well, Sunak has said that Anderson's words were wrong without saying that the sentiment was wrong. Anderson has said that his words were clumsy, but that he will not apologise for saying something that is fundamentally correct. I think there has probably been intense discussions between the leadership and Anderson since this blew up, and those talks are continuing. Anderson, remember when he had the whip withdrawn, made a statement where he said he understood the position he put the Tory leadership in. So there was no argy-bargy, there was no animosity in the public statements between the leadership and Anderson, right? So that suggests to me they are talking and trying to come up with a solution. And, you know, Anderson, whether because he's an idiot or whether because he thinks he's in a strong position, he's effectively blocked off any outcome that results in an apology from him. And this is speculation on my part, of course, but if the Tory leadership is trying very hard to work out some some way of arranging for Anderson to have the whip restored after a discrete period, in order to avoid seeing him go into reform, then he will need to do something. We may end up with a Priti Patel-style expression of regret masquerading as an apology. Oh, I'm sorry you felt that my words were Islamophobic. You know, that type of thing. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.